This is Aaron Golub, host of the Blind Ambition podcast. We'll be bringing you world-class leaders, entrepreneurs, and athletes, people who have overcome obstacles and used their ambition to create enormous success in their lives. If you enjoy this podcast, if you get anything out of it, the only thing I'll ever ask is that you subscribe, rate, and review. Hope you enjoy.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. As you know, I'm Aaron Golub. Today I'm joined by Chris Ross. Chris, thanks so much for being here.
Man, I'm blessed, man. I really appreciate it. I'm honored to be here and serving your audience at any kind of level I can, and definitely want to share some tips or whatever you want. I'm curious about the questions, and I really appreciate our friendship and how much it has definitely evolved over the last couple of weeks in conversations and you coming on the show, the win-win effect as well. So I'm really excited, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, and thank you for having me on your podcast yesterday. I feel like we've had only a handful of discussions so far, but they've all been really powerful, which is great. But let's just get into it. I mean, you've been very successful in sales training, in helping to build businesses. Let's go back to kind of your early stages as
Sure.
an entrepreneur, or maybe when you were kind of working at a company. What got you interested in the sales world? What got you interested in the sales training world? What was that when maybe you were younger, 20, 22 years old, that said, this is what I want to do?
Right. Really good question. I believe that I've always been in sales and I've always been attracted by it just by me being able to, make an impact in conversations. I mean, I always hear a lot, especially even in the younger years in sales when I got involved, that the clients would say to me, like, no one's ever asked me that question before, because I'm so present in the conversation. And it comes from, just having a high emotional intelligence, but emotional intelligence comes from, past experiences and behaviors and understanding human behavior and whatnot, and the psychology behind it. But what kind of got me started into sales was I went into education sales, and that was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. And when I saw the impact that I was able to make with people that are trying to go into a school or a trade school type of program, it really helped me be able to qualify that type of person to make sure that they're going to do well within the system or within the school. And so that way they were going to get job placement and accreditations and whatnot. So when I kind of got started into that, that's a completely different type of sale. So when people say sales nowadays, they think of the boiler room tactics and sales techniques and trying to get them always to say yes. Well, I want clients to tell me no, and I embrace that because I want to know if it's going to be a real true fit for you and it's going to make an impact. And it comes with, my moral obligation and everything that I'm about in ethical sales. So when I saw a huge opportunity, I guess maybe about 8 years into education sales, I started rubbing elbows with the top people and the ones in, speaking on stage and going to Vegas and going to different places. And I realized that how much money I was making for companies. Like I did very well for myself. I was making $130 a year and I was around 28 years old. And I was like, wait a minute, but I'm making you millions of dollars every month. I don't understand why I'm only making this. And I kind of opened my eyes to maybe hone in on my craft and kind of get my voice and understanding, the impact that I do make with companies and corporations. What if I did it on my own? And I kind of launched out and said, to hell with it. I'm going to go ahead and make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's, I think, a big leap that so many people are afraid to take. And it's because they're afraid of the unknown. And so what was that process like, taking that jump, taking that leap of faith, and going from working at a company to just saying, you know what, I'm just going to go and start this whole thing on my own. I'm going to be wildly successful while doing it.
Right. It comes from your intuition. I mean, you always want to I always felt like I was destined for more and I wanted more for my life. I didn't really want the whole security thing. I mean, working, 80 hours a week, making $130 a year. Yeah. Some people would say that's a huge success, and it was, but I knew that I could do it on a bigger scale, and I wanted to kind of test some of my skills and test and challenge myself. I've always been the kind of person to challenge myself. And if it doesn't challenge me, I'm not interested. It needs to be difficult. So I've always leaned into those type of situations. So when I broke out on my own 8 years ago in entrepreneurship, I had no idea what the hell I was doing, Aaron. I had no idea what the hell I was doing, but I knew one thing. that if you put me on a phone with someone, I can convince them that they need to do something with their life and do something better. So I knew that. I knew how to make an impact on people individually. And then I learned how to not just do it on a high level myself, but how to train it and how to duplicate those type of results. Because here's what typically happens in sales companies is you have a top performer that's outperforming everyone. And that was the case. I was probably counted for around 90% of revenue for that particular company at the time. Well, they don't want to promote that type of person into a leadership role just because they'll lose that much revenue. Well, I was able to prove to the higher ups and the people in that company that I was able to train what I do. And you're a little bit more profitable and more valuable for the company. And then I was like, okay, I'm able to do it now. Like, why don't I do this for myself? And of course, it's all about meeting the right people. And when I had a couple, I wouldn't say mentors, but people from my past and said, man, you can be great at this. You can just build a company, a corporation. So my first year in entrepreneurship, I went from making around 130 a year to around 700 grand that first year. And I did very well for myself, but after taxes, I had no idea how to structure my organization. So after paying taxes and everything else, I was only left with around like 30K. I was like, well, wait a minute, this isn't right. So I started asking, really difficult questions for myself and other people around me. And luckily I was able to, be around some, surreal entrepreneurs that kind of helped me structure my organization, because sales is all about structuring deals. I was always good at it, but not structuring deals and contracts and a legal side of entrepreneurship. And then from that first year after that, I, broke into, around like maybe 1.8, $1.9 million the second year. And I was like, wait a minute, I am good at what I do. Right. So it's not like you're proving it to yourself, but it's never enough for me. It was never enough, because I just want to make an impact in any type of conversations. It doesn't matter if it's a board meeting now, or if it's a one-on-one conversation, or being on the podcast, or going on different shows. It's all about how can I make an impact, and how quickly can I make an impact with that person or individual or company or corporation.
I think that's such an important factor. It's, all of your sales training is about the other person. It's about making an impact and helping them move forward. And I think that's really important, because that's something that I think about in everything I'm doing. Is, how can I help them? How can I impact them? Instead of being that salesman who says, how can I make a profit? And I think that when you say, how can I make a profit? Okay, you might see short-term success, but you're not going to see long-term success, because people will see that in you. And when you say, how can I impact others? How can I help others? It's going to take a little while longer to get to that point. But once you get there, you're going to be wildly more successful than the person who says, how can I make the quick buck?
Right. I 100% agree to that, because and it's a hard thing for people, because you got to make money, right? Yeah. If you don't make money in entrepreneurship, you're going to close up shop or have to go work for someone else. And it's a scary feeling, but I always knew that I had a high income skill and I can do this at a high level, but I was proving it. And when I started proving it, I took how much money can I make from that type of situation or that encounter? I took that away, and how can I serve, and how can I make more of an impact? The money will come. Yeah. The money will always come because of the value. 100%. The value 100%. Is going to be there, and that's where I meet a lot of, I guess you say, the top dogs in sales nowadays. They can't get on the phone with me and outsell me. They might have been able to do it 30 years ago, but there's one place you can always find the sales techniques books and these gurus. And there's a really good place you can find them in Barnes and Noble. You have a clearance rack. That's where all the books are at. It's not working in today's marketplace. They can't sell in today's marketplace because they're not selling with the right intentions in mind of doing something for the buyer first and increasing their experience.
100%. No, I completely agree. And, we're those kind of guys who are the, gurus of sales. Did anyone kind of mentor you when you were younger going through this process, or where did you really learn the techniques that you've been able to establish?
Good question. I did have people that, definitely helped me, but no one's ever taught me a technique. I kind of learned on the fly and learned on my own. And that's one thing I love about sales is it's instantaneous, right? I mean, I know for sure just by me having a conversation with someone, they're engaged in what I'm talking about, or I'm making an impact. And if they're not, then I need to change my approach. I'm not connecting with people. And I've always had an uncanny ability of being able to connect with someone and putting myself in their shoes on a tactical side point of understanding it. But once I made that shift and became 100% authentic within myself, I was able to do it in my personal life. That's when you become very powerful. You mentioned, the same type of person that you would see on social media is the same person you would see at Starbucks or you would see in a board meeting. I'm the same cat. I'm 100% authentic, man. And that's something that I've always made sure that the energy and being conscious of the fact of how I'm transferring energy into people. And then that's my energy source though. That's my fulfillment. That's what I get from people. Like the impact that I make with people is what I do it for. I don't do it to make money, but money does come, and the money is really easy to make. It's really easy, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's really easy to be in the top 1% in the world. It's really easy because it's not crowded. It's not crowded at the top. It's really easy because people are just in a society right now where everything they want it right now. They're not willing to put in the work. Well, I put in the work, Aaron, and now it shows because I'm not surface level. You hear a lot of these people, they talk about, what they're good at and how they can do it and how they can sell it and how great they are, but they're not able to do it. And you got to ask yourself, how are they not able to do it? That's the first thing I look for. That's where I can make a shift or adjustment in their organization and come to them and present them an opportunity. Hey, I know that you're the face of your company and you're supposed to be the guru, but what if I was able to teach you something that could multiply your results in a very high level?
Yeah, no, definitely. And so I guess what advice would you give to someone when they're reaching out to someone for a sale or to build a new relationship, whatever, whether it be, over email, over the phone and LinkedIn and, whatever that may be, what advice would you give someone to, whether it be build that relationship or close that sale or create that new network? What would be, the one or two things that you would really suggest to really dial into someone would be?
Lead with the outcome in mind. Like, what are you looking for and the impact that you can make with that person? So you see I get a lot of messages, as I'm sure you do as well. And especially on LinkedIn or a lot of places. And they always say, hey, Chris, hope all is well. And you're doing well in this COVID times. It's uncertain and yada, 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 yada. Well, I got to scroll all the way down to get to the point. Well, when I'm sending messages to people, especially, entrepreneurs that do very well, like 8 to 9 figures, right? They're going to sit back and they want to get to the point. They want to know, hey, how can you help me? And how can you make an impact? They don't care about all the other stuff. They don't care. So if I can give any advice to anyone, always lead with the outcome in mind you're looking for, and just be 100% honest. Don't have a ulterior motive.
So it's interesting. So start the message and just say, hey, I'm reaching out because of X, Y, Z. And then the next sentence below that is, hope you're doing well.
Yes.
So kind of reverse it.
Yeah. Reverse it. Get to the point and lead with that at the beginning, because that's what they want to hear.
Yeah.
That's what they want to hear. And then you can, and of course, after they visit, would that be something that you'd be interested in? Would you be open to having a conversation about collaboration? Or, hey, would you be open for us to meet for a virtual cup of coffee, since we can't do it nowadays because of what's happened, right, in the world? Would you be open to sit down with me for 10 minutes and see how we both can support each other? And then when you get that and spark that interest, now you have the dialogue. Now you can ask the right questions, what, when, why, how questions, and establish a relationship. When you reached out to me kind of cold turkey, you didn't lead with a bunch of other stuff. You led with what you were looking for, right? So that sparked my interest, and that's why I responded. But I'm not going to respond to messages of just a huge novel. People want to send you a novel. I don't want to read all that stuff.
I don't want to read it. It's the biggest pain in the ass ever when I receive a message, whatever it may be, whether it be LinkedIn, whether it be Instagram, whatever platform it is. And it's like a 2 or 3 paragraph thing. It's like, I don't want to read this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like what's the point? There's no outcome. And they don't even, there's a lot of salespeople. I see this happen, and it's not just sales. And I get a lot of messages about this. Like, I don't really want to do sales because it's sales. I'm like, we're all in sales. You were in sales the moment you were born. When the doctor slapped you in the ass, you were selling him when you were crying and not slapping you anymore. Right? Yeah. I mean, whatever, you've been in sales your whole life. I just shine a light on it and let people know they've been doing it their whole lives.
Exactly. And it's something where, I think there's different areas of sales. I mean, yeah, you can be that salesman who's, like I said before, selling to make a profit. And if you're selling that way, then it's not going to be enjoyable and people aren't going to, want to work with you, and it's not going to work out. But if you're selling with the right intentions, if you're selling your personality, you're selling to help others, that's not really, it's sales, but like everything I'm doing, like you said, is sales. But I consider it more as I'm just networking. I'm just building relationships all day, and that's how I treat everything, and things will come. But I don't consider myself ever selling someone. I build relationships, I network. If the time is right, I go discuss one of the ventures that I'm kind of currently pursuing and try and see if they're interested. But I don't just straight up sell. I build the relationship.
Right. And I mean, you see a lot of, especially the movies back in the day, like sell me this pen, that type of bullshit. I don't like that type of stuff because it's no connection there. There's a lot of buyer remorse in those types of situations because they're going to feel like they've been sold to. And everybody's probably listening to this. And if there's, I'm sure you have a huge audience because the impact that you bring your listeners. And I've listened to a couple of there's amazing stuff you have, Aaron. But if anyone's listening to this, ask yourself really a tough question. Have you ever been sold to and you felt like you had a lot of regret that you bought it? That should be a huge motivation factor. Just do the complete opposite.
Yeah, it's something that I think everyone needs to audit in their life. And I think all of us probably have that moment or that purchase or whatever it is that they feel like they did and they just regretted it after. And it's just an issue.
Right. But one of the other pieces on top of that is when you start learning how humans make decisions and you look at your decision-making process. So when I'm asking questions with customers, clients, students, it doesn't matter what capacity, corporations, I'm asking questions to figure out how you go about making decisions. And because there's only a certain amount of behaviors that people tend to go to and they run to, right? So when I start asking these questions, I'm going to identify how you make choices and how you make decisions. And I identify, do you own those? Do you take accountability for yourself, or do you blame? You point blame on others. You have a victim mentality. Do you maybe want more out of life, but you maybe just can't figure out how to get there? Well, I ask another question to that. I say, okay, why do you think that you're in this situation right now? So if I'm able to teach you to make better choices and decisions, how impactful would that be for you? And I let them tell me. And
that's awesome.
Right. And that's the impact that I bring. I'm not just talking about this product or service are good. I'm talking about how I can make an impact with you in the next 2 to 5 to 10 to 20, 30 years of your life. When you make an impact with people and you change the way that they look at life, that's something where people don't really care about what you're selling anymore.
And I think it's a difference between someone being a client and a customer. And when someone's a customer, it's a one-time transaction. I go to CVS and I purchase, a bottle of water. I'm a customer. I'm a customer for that 2 seconds. But someone who's a client, the client, you're generally not going to service them for a day or 2 days or 3 days. You're servicing them so they can succeed 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road. There's a huge difference between the client and the customer.
And that's how you turn people into a lifelong client. Even like the bottle of water. I only drink one type of bottle of water. You know what I mean? I'm
all right, we got to get into that real quick.
But seriously. Seriously, just because on how the marketing, it could be something that I enjoy. It could, whatever. That's how you turn a customer into a lifelong client. You give them something and it's all about, if you turn that, you change this to all about how is the experience, that's a different story, man. When you learn
what type of bottle of water do you drink before we go on?
I drink this one called Elevate, right? And it's Elevate is why I drink that bottle of water, because it fits in my briefcase perfectly. And it doesn't have to, get crumpled up and then spill and all kind of stuff. I love it because it fits in everything. I love drinking every day. I have no bullshit. I actually ordered a huge case of it and I love it. So then huge case of that water, but sometimes it's not the water that I'm drinking, it's the bottle. It's how that fits into my life, and it increases my quality of life, because no one wants a bottle of water to burst in your freaking briefcase when you're going somewhere, in your book bag or whatever that might be for you. So that's why I buy it.
That's so funny. That's I love that.
I know it probably sounds crazy, but that's how much I look into things.
That's awesome. So you were recently accredited by Forbes for everything that you've been doing. Talk a little bit about that, what the journey to get that was, and how that felt once they really did, give you that notoriety.
Right. And it didn't mean a lot to me because they actually reached out to my companies and they saw the impact that we were making with, I built actually a trade school corporation and I hired a CEO and executive staff for that type of role. I stepped down from the CEO role, which was a hard thing to do because that was my baby. But I needed to move on to different ventures and turn myself into that next step, that surreal entrepreneur and being an investor and making things happen in that type of level. Yeah. So when they did reach out, it did mean a lot to me. The success, I guess you would say satisfaction from it lasted about 10 seconds. But other than that, it was just something else you put on your resume and whatnot. And it felt really good. I do like the fact that my companies and my PR team and marketing are able to write up articles on the stuff that actually, some of the trainings and some of the things that I've done over the years and making an impact on those types of platforms, which is really exciting. And then this is also another way of networking and people seeing what I've done over the years and why I guess you would say why I do the things that I do to make the impact.
Yeah. And it's interesting because something like getting accredited by Forbes, it's nice to have. Does it really matter? Not really. You can be successful with or without it. Is it great? Is it a nice feeling when it happens? Yeah, but that goes away. But it's funny because like we all have those goals or those things that, even though does it really matter in the long run? Probably not. But is it nice to have? Like, one of my goals, even though it doesn't really matter, honestly, in the end, if I get it or not, like, I would love to be on the Forbes 30 under 30 list by the time I'm 30.
Beautiful, yeah.
That's one of my goals. Does it matter if I get it or not in the long run? No, honestly, it doesn't matter. But would I like it to happen? Would it be nice? Yeah.
I mean, you can't just put, it's like everyone has goals and things that they would love to accomplish, but you can't be able to be all about that one goal because what happens when it's, you make it and you achieve that goal? You got to keep aligned on what you're doing. I mean, because here's the thing about goals. People set out goals. I set out goals that are almost unattainable.
Yep. And
then I have targets that I have to chase and have to succeed. Like, so there's I got all these boards in my office, right? And I write out every single day and I strategize and, okay, some days I don't hit these tasks. Some days I don't hit these targets. Well, it doesn't change the outcome. It just changes what I do the next day to get to that outcome. Yeah. If that makes sense. So if your goals are those types of things, you need to have something behind it. Like
100%.
Forbes stuff and all these things that, happened. And I'm honored. Don't get me wrong. I'm honored. I thought it was a huge achievement and it wasn't even something that was on my radar. And I thought it was even more impactful and self-satisfying for myself as they approached me for it. And that really felt good. And as in you being, Forbes 30 under 30, and that's something that you really want and it's something you're going to go after, I'm sure it's something you'll achieve if that's on your target, right? So that's the whole thing about someone that has a winning mentality. You have a winning mentality, Aaron.
Yeah. What would you say drives you to succeed every day? What drives you to succeed? And then from there, what are the daily habits or routines, as you and I have talked about a few times before, that allow you to succeed once you have that drive?
When I define my competitive advantage was my sister, my deceased sister. She passed away when I was just about right before I turned 16. And she was only supposed to live till she was 4 years old. She was born handicapped. And I watched her kind of breathe through tubes her whole life, you know what I mean? And fight and fight and fight. My dad worked 2 to 3 jobs, just to be able to provide the care that she desperately needed because the healthcare sucked so bad. My mom beating cancer, 8 back surgeries. Well, I used to look at life where like, why her? Why does she have to go through this? Why did my family? Why this? Why that? And I stopped looking at it as a victim. I started looking at it, that was there for a reason for me to excel in life. So when I'm having those tough days, I draw from that motivation every day. And because she couldn't do it, I get to do it.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to do what I do. I get to do what I do for a living and I love it and I'm grateful for it. And you talked about like the daily habits. Well, 5 a.m. every morning, man, I wake up and 5 a.m. that's where the biggest battle I win every day. And that's my dedication to become 1% better every day. every day. I just got to move that needle. And I'm not talking about just in business and in all these areas. I'm talking about just in every aspect of my life. And that's where you can become a little bit more aligned in who you are as a person and being 100% authentic. There's days that I don't want to do it at 5 a.m. and go through it, but I need to rechannel everything and clear out my mind. And once I'm able to do that, mind, body, spirit, I can lean into my day and be successful. And a lot of times where people, they hold on to things and they bottle things up. I was one of my failures in life. I used to bottle things up inside. And what tends to happen there is you're suppressing it, but it needs to come out. And a lot of people, you know, when growing up and, you know, I was taught by, you know, some really strong men and not showing weakness and showing vulnerability. Well, you need to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
You got to be vulnerable. You got to let it go, man. Because I mean, I'm not scared to cry. I'm not scared to put myself in those types of situations because I know it's going every, you know, tear I shed, I'm getting stronger. Every day I'm getting stronger. Right? I'm getting better every single day. And that's that. And I think that's where that 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. And we talked about this on, I think on our episode when you came on, is that those 5 hours, man, I do more by 10 o'clock in the morning than most people do all day, sometimes in a week.
100%.
So, and I broke down the hours. Those 5 hours, you look at it and times that by how many weeks, right? Or how many days of the week and then how many days. You're looking around like 2,000 hours more of productivity I get a year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where people are chasing my results because I'm outworking them. I'm still outworking. Even at the top, I'm still outworking them. Still outworking. So,
100%.
right.
I love that. I think it's so important to keep going once you get to the top. So many people, you know, work and work and work and then get to where they want to be and they just plateau or they decline because they stop doing the same habits, the same non-negotiables, the same routines that they've done every single day. And when you can use that success to drive you to create more success, to create more opportunities, that's when you truly become successful, I think, because you don't stop. The people who see some success and then stop and ease up end up getting past.
Right. Yeah. They get complacent, and that's a human behavior.
Yep.
We all do it, but it's never the outcome that I'm looking for is the achievements. That's not why I'm doing it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so like
100%.
Being at the top, sometimes I don't even know how fast I'm moving until I look down. You ever been in a plane and you're about maybe a couple thousand, you can still see the ground a little bit? Well, you don't have an indicator. If you're paying attention, you're looking through a windshield, you don't know how fast you're actually moving until you look down. And you say, wow, I'm moving really fast. That's how I look at life, is I'm moving that fast. And I typically don't ever look down or look behind me. I'm still moving. I got to keep pushing, because if I don't, and I become unaligned in some type of area of my life, it's going to spiral out of control, because that's a lot of energy, that's a lot of force that I'm bringing to it.
Yeah.
And that's when you got to hold yourself accountable to even the choices and decisions that I make, because good or bad, I still need to live with the repercussion. And the things that I really want out of life, you just think that even the success that I have, and I'm very grateful and I'm a very blessed individual, very blessed. And I believe all of us are miracles, all of us. But that's how I look at my life. And that's the difference. Because
I love that.
That's the difference of someone that's really going to make an impact in the next 20 to 30 or 40 years. I don't know how much time I got on the clock, Aaron, but there's one thing that if I do make it to 80 or I do make it to 90, I'm surrounded by all my family and I'm surrounded by all the people that love me. And that's success to me. And I'm not going to look back at my life and be like, I wish I'd have done something, or I wish I'd have done this in my life. I'm not going to look back at my life that way.
But for some reason, the fire alarm is going off in my apartment.
Well, we're setting off a fire alarm.
1 second.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
Go ahead.
No, yeah. I mean, I think that was a really interesting concept. As we kind of wind things down a bit, what advice would you give someone who, is in sales or is an entrepreneur and is younger, maybe even someone around my age or even younger who's starting out in sales, starting out as an entrepreneur, whatever it is, but is on the path to see success in the future? What advice would you give to that type of person?
Gain more knowledge every day. Look at life as a learning curve. Everything's a learning curve. Every phone call is part of your journey. Like if you do a cold call, what can you do to make more of an impact? Right. I mean, that's part of, like, every person I've ever had a conversation with in a business, doesn't matter in what business or what part of my life and journey and my, I guess you say, my growth, right? I look at it, they invested into my future, right? They're just as much part of my journey as I'm part of their journey, because that's where I honed in on my craft and my skill set. So if you're always asking yourself, where can I learn more? Where can I gain more knowledge? I don't like to, I've read a lot of books. I've read a lot of books, especially when it comes to like human behavior and the psychology behind sales. But it's not just, it had nothing to do with sales. Like, there's another good book, is one of my first ones I read was Dr. Eric Byrne, Games People Play. Freaking phenomenal book, because people do play games, right, with people. And if you learn how human behavior and learning what questions you need to ask, it comes, like, I don't do sales scripts because I don't have to do sales scripts anymore, but I'll write them. But the whole thing behind sales scripts is that you need to ask the right questions. When you get someone to say to you, no one's ever asked me that question before, you know why? Because someone else was trying to sell them. I'm not trying to sell you. I'm trying to figure out who you are and what I can do for you. Right.
Yeah.
So if that can give any advice, any type of someone is starting out in that type of field, you just got to learn more, like gain more knowledge.
That's great advice. I love that. And so, where can people find you on social media, any websites, anything that you have going on?
Right. Easiest place is at Chris Ross on Instagram, or at Chris Ross Companies on Instagram is one of my other pages, and it has all the companies that I do own and the things that we're doing. And the Win-Win Effect is the podcast. Probably the easiest place is go to, just Google Chris Ross Official, or go to chrisrossofficial.com. Easiest place to find me. There's a lot of companies that I do own silently, and other investments that I've made over the last couple of years that have put me in this type of situation where it's not about the money anymore, which is always a good thing, but it's never really about that, right? It's always about what kind of impact can I bring. So if anyone's listening to this and, they're looking for me and looking for some type of advice, I'm an open book, man. Doesn't matter. There's activities that I have every day that are profitable for me. But every relationship, it doesn't matter if going to be a sales call. I'm not that type of person. So you won't find a training out there that actually has a sticker price on it hey, Chris, can you train my company? No, man, that's not the process. I don't sell anything online. If it's free, it's me, bro. Like, that's what it's all about. But on the other side, just for the training, just let everyone know there's a lot of stuff out there. Just be conscious of the fact of how you're getting involved, and pay very close attention to what their message is and what they're about. Don't just go online and try to get sales training, because you're going to be caught into a loophole of hell, right? Because there's a lot of garbage out there, man. You got to be careful.
Definitely. I love that. And first off, again, thanks so much for being on. I'm sure my listeners have gained a lot from you today, and I really appreciate it.
Man, I'm like I said, man, I'm blessed, and I'm really grateful for the conversations, all of them, even the ones in the future. And I look forward to seeing your success and keep growing and growing and growing. You're doing great, man. I'm proud of you. Good stuff.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it at all, if you got one thing out of it, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you.